Tell me more about the challenge of writing short fiction. Why do you like that?
So the challenge of writing short fiction. I just like the idea that concise can be better and clarity is just um, the most ideal way to get a message across. So the fact that some people say you can't tell a story in under 100 words is bogus. So I always go back to that 6 word memoir that started the 6 word memoir genre, which is baby shoes for sale. I think it starts with for sale, baby shoes never worn. And I think that tells a really cool story, a sad story. But I always, since I teach high school, I challenge my students to be brief in their writing. The more you can say with the fewer words, the better, just to show that you have control over your vocabulary and your language, and to be able to paint a picture using few words. I think that's an art form.
Yeah, I do agree. One of the best writing advices I got was from my cousin. It was when I was in the process of writing my first book, and I was telling him one of my worries was, man, what if it's not long enough?
Mhm.
And he said to me, focus more on did you say what you wanted to say
Mhm.
instead of word count? And that really unlocked something for me. So I agree with you. Brevity, it absolutely makes a difference. And I think for myself, I like complexity from myself,
Mhm.
and I like simplicity from others.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's the same in your experience.
I think when I'm writing short fiction and I have a target, I think it's pretty easy to try to keep revising until I get to that target. When I'm writing a novel, I can't stop myself. So it is as much as I want on the paper. And usually I go over the intended word count for the genre that I'm writing, and I have to condense, condense, condense. The current novel that I'm working on, the sweet spot is 80,000 if you want a traditional agent. And I think I was at 88,000 words for a long time. And my editor just said, you got to get that number out of your head. That is just a number. The publishing industry is putting that out there. You need to tell the story first, and then you can worry about word count later, but you should not have word count in your head while you're writing.
Yeah. One of the main reason I wanted to have you on, I felt like you were the best candidate to talk to about this. You've been working on your book for several years now.
Mhm.
A person changes so much over time. How do you deal with the frustration of you're writing the same book, but you're a different person now? Because there's been moments where I'll be working on a project and maybe I thought something was beautiful or amazing at first, but give it some time, the frustration creeps up on me. And now maybe I can't even see the beautiful things the same way anymore. How do you wrestle with that?
That's so interesting. So I think I had the idea like 10 years ago for my story, and it's based on a town where my grandma lived before she passed in Pennsylvania. And so I've always had that deeper purpose, like I want to honor her house where I felt like I was at home growing up. But then I actually wrote the full manuscript in 2020, and it's 2026 and the book is not published. I'm on my fifth edit. I hired an award-winning author to do my deep edit, and that was great. But there's a lot of changes. And so the word change is interesting that you bring that up because the book has seen me through a lot of stages of my life. I think I wrote it in 3 months because COVID. What were we going to do during COVID? And we were all in lockdown. So that brought me joy. But then I had to step away from it. And when you look at traditional publishing websites that give advice, they say step away from your book for months. If you can do 2 to 3 months, you'll come with a fresh perspective. And I think that's true. But like you're saying, it's frustrating because when I write a chapter and I want to reread it over and over and over. And I want to get that chapter perfect before I move on. And so if I do it that way, a month later, I'm on chapter two. The changes in your life can be so extreme. I just remember periods of months that I just never even looked at my book. So I think you have to be in the mood. I think you have to remember the original purpose for writing your book. Obviously, if I wanted to get it out now, I could self-publish, and that wouldn't be an issue. I think my childhood dream is seeing a book in a bookstore that I've written, and I think it would be easier to do that with traditional publishing. Um, so yeah, it's followed me through many changes. Motherhood. I mean, I've had two kids since I've written this book. I never, it's hard to find time to write and edit. So summers are great. But yeah, I look at things and I'll say, why did I write that? But more often I'll say, how did I think of that? At this point in my life, with all the things that are going on, teaching and being, a mom and a wife, how did I think of that? Like my headspace and my thought capacity is different now than before I had children because it's taken up by so many. I wear so many hats now. And so I will look at the dialogue and I'll say, that really sounds like my classroom. I'm impressed with myself. I can't change that. But the storyline has holes. So I think that over time, it gives me a really good perspective because I can say, oh, this is garbage. But more often than not, I see like little gems in my writing and I'm like, oh, old me had it right. That was good. So I actually appreciate the time. I have a feeling that authors who have published books read their books and also wonder, what was I thinking during that time in my life? Or this is the time in my life I wrote this and it reflects it, well. And I wish I could change that. Well, obviously I don't have that problem yet because I can still change it. But I think that's a really deep thought. I don't really know how to wrestle with it except to just keep trying and just keep making it better and just keep getting outside advice. The young adult market right now is saturated. And so even my deep content editor, she said, this is going to take 2 years or more. Are you ready for the challenge? And I was like, okay, bring it on. I'm going to keep making, I think by the time I get this book published, I might be on my seventh, eighth, or ninth revision. And if I get to that bookstore, I will be happy. So I just have to remember what brings me joy. And if this brings me joy, I'm going to keep at it.
Are you a patient writer or an urgent writer?
Ooh, tell me what an urgent writer is.
Well, I think for the past year, I've been really fascinated by speed and urgency. And in the Chinese zodiac, this is the year of the horse as well. I've always been, I think for a long time, a very patient person. I take
Mm,
my time. I'm very calm. And that has its advantages. But sometimes it's like, hey, let's get this done because otherwise it remains an open tab in your head or an
mhm.
open loop. And that just kind of it nibbles in the back of my mind. Oh yeah, I got to get that done. I got to get that done. And so I feel like in situations like that, urgency is super helpful. So I'm trying to be a more urgent writer now, but for a really long time I've been a patient writer. And I think at the end of the day, it's a little bit of a yin and yang thing where you got to have both in you. But I'm curious about you. Naturally, are you more of a patient writer or an urgent writer?
So I think I would have to say patient only because this has been years, years and years for me to try to get this novel out. But when the urgency hits, I do my short fiction pieces. And then I can turn around that in 2 days, send it off, and get it published in a magazine.
You impress
So,
me.
well, thank you. I mean, if I want to, I think this is what it comes down to. If I want to get something done, I'm going to focus my full energy on it really hard for 1 or 2 days and then see what happens, see where it lands. And
Hmm.
I cannot recall in the period that I was submitting short fiction, I can't recall maybe but 1 or 2 rejections. It's not that my writing, I mean, I would like to think my writing is outstanding, but it's very if you're selecting the right kind of magazine, fiction magazine for your work, there's no reason why it shouldn't get published.
Hmm.
Um, so I think if you do your research on the front end, you'll see the results. So when I have to convince myself I'm doing this and this is my calling and there's a reason I want to be an author, then I will challenge myself with, okay, go find a competition, look at the theme of that short fiction competition and whip it out. So there are periods of time where I'm very much impatient. And that's what happens. I'll write short fiction.
I'm super fast with writing poetry or songs, but
Mm-hmm.
short stories even I struggle with, and it could be years where it's like it's still not done. And I'll always remember, Stanley talking about how um him and his wife wanted to do something, like take a trip or whatever. So that night he would just write a story and then cash in the
Mm-hmm.
next day. It's like I don't know how you do that. So people that are able to write short stories so quickly like yourself, it really impresses me. I don't know why. For me, it's just a struggle to close that, put a period on that.
Mm. Well, I know we teach Fahrenheit 451 to our sophomores, and I know Ray Bradbury wrote that in a basement of a library for 10 cents an hour, I believe, on his typewriter. So he knocked that novel out in 2 days. And
Wow.
I mean, he did not, and I could be incorrect, but I've watched interviews with him. He did it in a very short amount of time. Um, and he was on a typewriter. So he didn't go back and do all these revisions that we can do today with computers. And that is a work of fiction that I feel like we will always be teaching. So it's all about process and it's about how your mind works. So I'm curious about your poetry because I've read and listened to some of your poetry and it's beautiful. So how long do you think it takes you to craft a poem and where do you get your inspiration?
The quickest is seconds. And I was asked about inspiration not too long ago, and I really thought about it. And it was anything that attracts me, because
Mm,
attraction has that power to just lure you in, kind of like what you were saying, where when you have to do something urgently, you put like all your focus and energy into it. I feel like attraction has that power. If you're attracted to something, it just seizes you, kind of like a
mm.
UFO in a way, like a magic spell. Just it seizes you, and it just comes out. So I guess that would be my answer.
Okay. That's great. I love that. Poetry, I do not really dabble in poetry.
But
There
you
was
have some
one
great poems.
there was one poem that you read that was about my husband's grandma, and it just came naturally to me because I was thinking about dementia and I was thinking about how sad it'll be when we get older and lose our memory. And so I mean that just came out. And that was like 30 minutes before group started. So if I do write poetry, I don't do a lot of revisions. I just kind of let it be what it's supposed to be. But I think, but I never go into it thinking, oh, I want a deeper meaning. I think I just want to write what's on my heart. But I really don't. I don't do a lot of poetry. It's a little intimidating to me, which is why I'm very impressed that you write so much poetry and your poetry is really good.
Thank you. It's kind of you to say.
Hmm.
And I think when it comes to poetry, the mistakes aren't stains, they're polish marks. I think it's the mistakes that
Hmm.
make them pretty. Yeah. But well, I guess for you, what is the biggest struggle in writing?
Um, Goodness, I think structure. I think I have a novel called Save the Cat, and I know many authors use different versions of here's an outline of how the typical story would go, and just labels all the parts. And so after I wrote my novel, I did get advice from like critique writers. Go back and look at a novel that outlines how you should structure and see if your structure matches that. And when I realized that I was writing a contemporary YA and I didn't have the typical structure. I wanted to make it a little bit more like the typical structure. So that's the hard part for me is just not getting how I think it should go. And I'm not saying you should change your writing by any means, but I do want those big moments. And I think my current um, protagonist, she doesn't struggle enough. That's one thing that my editor keeps telling me. It's a little bit too easy, and so the lesson isn't learned as deeply. And with the contemporary, obviously, I want some coming of age in there. And so I think the hardest part is I can see the flaws in others' writing, which I edit on the side. And I think I do a great job of saying this is realistic and this is not realistic. But in my own writing, it's just harder to see the flaws. I know my strength is dialogue because I have been in a classroom for 18 years. My strength is not like making the character struggle. I'm trying to think of anything else. I have a lot of backstories going, maybe too many subplots at sometimes. But again, it's I've been told that's not where the climax should happen. So I think the struggle is truly, what is my structure? Is my structure adequate? Will people understand my structure like it mean for it to come across? I think those are my struggles.
That's interesting to me. There's this episode that Rick Rubin has on his podcast with M. Night Shyamalan.
Mm,
And M. Night Shyamalan talks about, when he fleshes out his movies, he gave the example of like a pyramid. And there's the
mm,
foundation and then the structure kind of builds up. And he's like, one of the things he noticed with some of his films was maybe he did something really cool up here in the structure, but because his base, his foundation was kind of flawed, the audience wasn't able, they didn't care about that. They're like, no, 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 forget that.
mm,
Down here, the basic stuff is just not working.
mm,
And I thought that was an interesting example that he gave because I looked back at some of his movies and I was like, yeah, that part was cool, but it's kind of a standalone. The other
mm,
stuff, the basic stuff is just not there. And so what you said right now kind of reminded me of that. The structure, the importance of it.
mm. That's really interesting. Um, what was I was thinking about when you were talking about that? Um, Structure is definitely my number one, and you have a point. When you see a movie where there's a storyline or something out of order, it kind of flashes a red bulb. I don't want my readers to experience that. Another thing that I'm thinking of as well is making a main character likable, actually. Um, the stakes are always important in a story. And so for the reader to get to, you said, the reader kind of almost empathizing with the character and also liking the character. I think one of my problems in my writing is I have all these really cool, quirky side characters, and they often outshine my main character. My main character is a little boring. I have to admit, I really need to go back and add some
Wow.
zest to her life. But I was told your main character, I don't even know anything about her. I just read this whole book and it's a great story. But what does she like to do in her spare time? What clubs does she do in high school? What are her interests? What's her favorite color? I don't even know that. And I just thought, oh my gosh. I got so wrapped up in the kooky side characters that were helping her on her journey that I kind of forgot to give her a personality.
That's
Um,
interesting.
and I mean, this is my fifth edit, and no one has said that to me before. So that's something to delve into too. And I understand why people have tons and tons of beta readers. If you don't have beta readers and you just try to put something out there, you're going to get a lot of mixed feedback. And I think any way that you slice it, you're going to get mixed feedback. But to make the story as believable as possible, those beta reader opinions are super important. Do you, besides group, do you have like a critique group or a core group of readers that give you opinions on your writing?
Actually, no, Jenna. In fact, I didn't actually share much of my writing until about like a year or so before you joined. Like I was
Mhm.
very secretive, very protective of it. There's an entire year where I would just show up and hear other people and share nothing. And they'd
Wow.
always ask me like, "Hey, why don't you share?" And I was always very protective of it. But then when I did start sharing, I realized, oh, like in a way, this is kind of like closing those open tabs in the back of my mind.
Mhm.
Now I finally put it out there in some form, and now I can be at peace, so to speak.
Mhm.
So other than that group, not really.
That's interesting because I remember having a conversation with Tom, and he was saying that you didn't share your writing until recently,
Oh,
when he was talking to me about who you were. So, yes, I've heard that from another person, but then he followed that up with, and he's so good. I don't know why he wasn't sharing his
it's kind
writing
of
for
him to say.
people. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's true. I think that especially your poetry, because I haven't read much else, but your poetry has a way of resonating with people. And I do remember one feedback session where everybody got something different or had a different favorite line. And that's one thing I like about you actually would have a very, very good success in a critique group, like a focus critique group, because you always pick a line and you always tell whoever's reading, this was my favorite line because, or this stood out to me, which I think is a really good quality for a critiquer to have because sometimes you get so much negative, it's nice to remember that positive. And so when I read my stuff, I'm always thinking about what you're going to say, like, what is your favorite line going to be? So that's helpful.
Thank
I
you.
think as you continue to write poetry, I think that you should find like a focused group of poets or something that challenges you. Because the secretive, I totally get that. There's a couple of things you might not want people to take your writing. You might be scared of opinions, but once you put it out there and you get all those opinions, those people are going to push you to do better writing.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
hope that you can find that in the future.
Very kind of you to say, Jenna. Thank you. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's so funny you mentioned because there's this one time that I shared this one poem, and I was very curious about what you would say. And my favorite line, it just didn't resonate with you. And you're like, yeah, I actually just don't understand this. And I was like, oh, that's like one of my favorite lines. It was the one where it's like, caution lurks in his eyes like a canine patrolling his irises. And
Yes,
you're like,
yes, I
I
remember
don't get
that.
this. And I was like, that's funny though to me, that it's interesting. You never know how your writing lands with people. And
Yeah.
sometimes you get really surprised that, oh, that really meant something to someone. I didn't know.
And I think my confusion was totally English teacher. I think there was like a misplaced modifier and I couldn't think of who went, what were the eyes with. I don't know what it was, but I remember bringing that up. That's so funny. Oh, see, it's really important that you come and share your work and get that feedback, I think. When I'm getting really serious, since my novel's on its fifth edit, I at one time was balancing three critique partners. Because I used to be in a group in Oklahoma City called the Oklahoma City Plot Holes, and
Oklahoma City.
we,
Wow.
yes, I lived there for 8 years, and we met at a writers conference, and it was a husband and wife team, and then all of their friends and me, and we would meet at like a coffee shop once a week, and we started meeting at their house, and that was just really productive. Everybody wrote a different genre. There was one guy that did zombie apocalypse stuff, always, always. There was one, we had fantasy. I think I was the only one who wrote young adult. There was a lot of different genres in adult. But no matter the genre, we always made each other better and we gave other, like, just ways to think of a line or a scene that we would never um, do that. And in sci-fi writers, I really like the fact that we have different opinions. We have different levels of expertise. We have different stages in life, in different types of writing, because you never know what you're going to get. And then new people come all the time and you're blown away and you're just like, wow, why haven't you published something? You know, so I think other people can make you better if you can balance it. There's
Yeah.
one this year, I kind of had to, one of my critique partners had to call it quits because of family stuff, and she was amazing. And I was so sad to lose her. So, and then I had two other partners, and it kind of just went like off a cliff. Like I just didn't have time this year to keep reading their stuff. So if you can get one or two focused partners and you still have time to be part of a group, that's super helpful to your craft, to strengthening it.
How did you discover the group?
Sci-fi writers.
Yeah. A lot of people come and go, but you ended up staying.
So give me a second. I'm gonna,
Of course.
sorry. So
You
I
take
look at the library schedule all the time. My kids, I want to take them to as many classes as I can because they're free and they're fun. So I came across adult writers, like it didn't even say the whole name, it said adult writers group, and I said, what is this? I'm like, gosh. And I found out it was free. It seemed long, like a 2 hour period. It was pretty long, but I wanted to check it out because I hadn't had an organized group in a couple of years. And I thought, what the heck, this is cool, and I'm going to meet people in the community that I wouldn't otherwise know. And I do love that there are so many ages. So you've got like the two college kids, and then everybody else is like in between. And then we have quite a few people who are seniors, which
yeah.
I actually love because
Yeah.
honestly, if I picked a writers group, I'm writing young adult. I wouldn't pick seniors to be my critiquers, but they have this life experience that is really helpful. So again, just looking at the library schedule, and then when I clicked on the group and it was a meetup, I was like, oh, I've done meetups before. This will be great.
Hmm.
So that's how I learned. What about you? How did you learn about it?
It was my sister actually. She showed it to me. She took a picture. She's at the library, and she's like, "Hey, by the way, they do this thing." So it's like, "Oh, okay." And then I ended up going, and I liked the vibe. You know, all the people there were regulars when I was first joining, and they're wonderful. So that's how I stayed. Um, when I first met you, you also seem very, or you are extroverted. At least all the times I've encountered you.
Mhm.
Have you always been that way?
Sorry. I'm so
You're
sorry.
good. You're good.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that's part of my personality. The best place to meet people at my school is the elevator and also the workroom. So it's so funny because I just finished my last day at a specific high school and I'm not seeing these people again. And I've been with them 7 years. And more than one person said to me, you were the first person I met here. And it's because I just go up to people and I just say, hi, who are you? Or you look lost. How can I help you? Or something to that effect. Or I keep seeing you in here. What's your name? I just say whatever I think.
Hmm.
Um, and they always talk about how they appreciate that. I was a military brat growing up. I moved every 2 to 4 years, and that's part of survival. If you don't talk to people, you don't make a home. And so my brother is very similar. He's younger than I am, but we were just okay. Bring on the next place. Let's make more friends. My youngest brother's a little shy, so he was different. Um, but I always say, uh, you can never meet enough people. The life experience that you get from other people and their point of view is just invaluable, even if it's opposite yours, even if it challenges you in a way that makes you upset, right? Like this person doesn't know what they're talking about. Well, then have a conversation with them and kind of try to open their mind. So I love Houston for that reason because it's just such a melting pot and you come across all kinds of people that you wouldn't come across, just like in the writers group. So yeah, it helps to be extroverted. Um, People ask me for my opinion a lot. I think it's because um, I don't know, because I'm so outgoing. They know that I actually also wouldn't mind taking time to do something. Um, I remember like one time a Spanish teacher was like, "Will you read my son's resume?" You know, it's just like stuff I would. Well, of course, the editing. The editing comes in handy. A lot of people need editing, but yeah, I also try to cultivate friendships beyond work too. And so I was really excited about the writers group because I just want people to geek out with writing about. That's really fun.
Yeah. Do you ever get shy or nervous?
Um, Golly. Yes, I will tell you what. It's around my kids' friends' parents.
Hmm.
Sometimes I don't know, like I feel I don't think they're giving off judgy vibes, but I always feel like I don't know what to talk about. What do you talk about? I feel like I'm not so much older than them, but it's just a weird when we get together, all we talk about is our kids. Like we don't get to know each other on a deeper level. And I think I don't know how to break that. I have a couple of really good friends, but they are the outgoing ones. So I kind of change a little bit when I'm around my son's friends' parents, which is really interesting because they're not mean people. It's just very focused on our children. It's not
Yeah,
focused on us as people. Does that make sense to you?
it does. That's a very
Okay.
interesting example. Yeah.
Okay. What about you? So I knew from the first group that we had together that you were super reserved, but when you open your mouth, you have really smart things to say. So have you always been like that your whole life? How do you typically make friends and do you like making friends? Do you surround yourself with a lot of people or like a close few?
Well, it's kind of you to say. I would hope to be saying smart things. I think I was pretty shy for the most part, unless like I knew somebody or I had friends. But then I think after high school in particular, it just kind of became it's like a switch I turn on. If I want to be extroverted, I just turn on the switch. If
Hmm.
I want to be a little bit more quiet or reserved, I just turn on the switch.
Hmm.
And so it kind of just fluctuates. But I think in terms of extroversion, introversion, I've kind of grown over the years.
Okay.
Yeah. But similar to you, I really enjoy meeting people. And there's so many people to meet. And anytime I get comfortable with a group of people, something happens and I realize there's more people out there and I just got to meet more people.
Yes.
And it really is fascinating. That's part of the reason I created this podcast, actually. I realized that I would meet so many different people in college, but it was kind of like a 5 minute handshake. Hi, hello. We
Yep.
exchange contact, and that's it. You just never really interact with them again. But what if there was a place to talk to them more, get to know them more? And it's like this is one of those. And every connection has an expiration date. It doesn't have to even be bad blood. It could just be death,
Mhm. Mhm.
But while we're still here, it's cool to interact.
I
You
agree
never
with you.
know. Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting that you talk about college. I think that has a lot to do with my personality too. My college had 400 kids in it. I knew every single person.
Well,
Um, and that's because I went up to people in the cafeteria and just started talking. I loved the teachers. It was a Catholic school. There were monks and nuns and priests, and I just made friends with everybody. And so I was recognized for like a lot of like, golly, if this tells you anything, this is a throwback. I was crowned homecoming queen the first year I was there as a freshman.
uh,
So, and then again as a senior when I was leaving.
well.
It was a little bit of an upset my freshman year. People were a little confused, but I mean that's a voted position. And you never go into a situation with you don't go in for that kind of thing. You just go in, how many people, I think my mindset is how many people can I talk to today? How many people can I encounter? And you know what? When I moved away I lived in Japan for 4 years. I
Whoa.
went to high school there and I had a girl at my bus stop. And every morning she looked so sad. And I would say, "Hi, Melissa. How are you?" And I mean, that's really all. She was like a neighbor, but I didn't talk to her a lot. I didn't hang out with her. She wrote me a letter after we graduated and sent it to me and said that I was the only person who talked to her every day. And she didn't have a lot of friends at school. And she will never forget that just she looked forward to me saying hello to her, even though it was the same words every day, because she was bullied and other things. And she said, I can never thank you enough for just talking to me. And that is so sad because, especially in these days when all high school students are so anxious and we hear a lot about mental health and we have before, it's just so important to remember that the person sitting next to you is a person and they have their strife and we don't know what that is. We don't know what that looks like. And so I don't know why you would walk down the street and scowl at people. Texas was the first place people said hi to me on the sidewalk. Like, "Hey
Southern
neighbor."
hospitality.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. It changes your day.
I'm especially curious about this Melissa story. You said you'd say hello to her, but was that it? Would she kind of give back much or just, oh, hi, Jenna, and that's kind of it?
We would talk about like her sisters and my brothers because we were the same age. We were in maybe one class together, but she was a quiet, shy person. And
Mm,
so sometimes we stood and waited for the bus in silence after that interaction.
yeah.
And we might not ever see each other again until we came home. And I don't really remember a lot of conversations on the way home, just every morning. So she had a much different experience in high school than I did. I did the whole class officer, theater, track, clubs, cheerleading. I did all kinds of stuff. I used to call myself the no lunch table girl because instead of really eating my lunch, I would bounce around from table to table and I just talk to people. And you can do that on a military base because everybody has been the new kid and no one's going to be like, "What are you doing here?" Everybody's like, "Hey, what's up?" So I would go to the skater table and I would go to the theater table and I would go to the band table and then the athlete table. And like nobody looks at you like you're weird. We just need to live in that kind of a society where people are open. People are so closed now.
You know, that's interesting to me because there's this stoic quote, and I think you're a great person to talk to about this. It's from Seneca, who says, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." And I do see the essence of what he's saying, but at the same time, there's a different intelligence, and that intelligence can be exemplified with what you're saying right now. You were the no lunch table girl. You'd go everywhere. You'd be interacting with people. That's its own kind of power, its own kind of smartness. How do you compare that experience with that stoic quote? How do you balance them, I guess?
Say the quote again.
He who is everywhere is nowhere.
I don't know if I agree with that completely. I feel like maybe that means you should be really good at one thing and focus your attention on one thing. If I'm, that would be my interpretation. Um, don't get bogged down with all the crazy things in life. Maybe it's not saying be good at one thing, but if you are everywhere, the challenge to that is finding a core group of friends who understand you. Um, I think that, I mean, if I was interpreting it from my stage of life right now, it would be like, don't get overwhelmed. Don't put yourself in so many different positions that you lose yourself.
Hmm.
But I think that, I mean, I wouldn't be a writer if I didn't have stories to tell. And all my characters are based on people I've actually met. So
Yeah,
I don't know that I would have that same storytelling ability if I didn't put myself everywhere. Um,
absolutely.
and there are some places I won't. Like I will look at a table of people and say, "Oh, they don't want anyone to sit with them. I'm good." But that, I mean, that would be more like what I think now. I mean, just to be candid, teachers can be meek, teachers can be clicky. It's kind
Yeah.
of like I've worked at schools where it's like high school all over again, where you have your friends and you don't mingle with other departments. Like we're adults. You can now it's that's not my current school at all. But when I was in Oklahoma, it was very much like people exuding the vibes. Like we don't want to be messed with. We like the status quo.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you think about that quote? I would be interested in your opinion.
No, similar to you, that quote has always kind of lingered in the back of my mind. I see what he's trying to say, but kind of like you, I feel like I'm someone who is often in multiple places. I'm often with multiple people, and I don't think that's a waste. I think you get something off of that, you know? So, yeah, similar to you, I don't think it's necessarily true, but I see the essence of what he's trying to say. But what you were saying about high school teachers, there's this TV show called Chad, and this one episode called Senor Dubes, and I saw that. It's just some teachers are they're clicky, they gaslight, and I'm sure you have more experience with that as well. And it's interesting because when you're a student, you might think, well, maybe I am wrong. You know, the adult is maybe the adult's right, but then you grow up and you realize people are people, and it's not
Yeah,
necessarily always the truth.
yeah.
Some
That's
teachers really are just terrible folks.
yeah, I appreciate, everybody, not everybody, but there's a lot of people who just doom scroll. And I do like, I mean, I'm not on TikTok, but I do like seeing there is a guy and I can't think of his name because I just follow his account, but he does two things. He will give a random guy a bouquet of flowers behind the back of the woman so they can and run away. So they can present their woman with flowers. Amazing. So cute. The woman always loves it. The other thing he does is he will go up to a person and say, "Hi, what's your name? My name's blah." And he will give the flowers or a flower to that girl with a note or a guy. It's been guys lately. And it always says, "I hope you heal from the things you don't tell people." And it's just amazing to watch these guys like their face crumble. And it's just real. I mean, it's totally real reaction. Like, I can watch that for so long because it just reminds you that you don't know what people are going through. And that that meant someone, something to so, or that meant so much to one person. I hope you heal from the things that you don't talk about. And we all have those. And so we need to be nice to people. I mean, really, I would love to have enough money to buy bouquets and give them to guys and, so that they can surprise their woman. But we also should be thinking about, how can we surprise our partner on our own? I just think there aren't enough people that, besides like on a college campus, as adults, how many people can you actually think of that just go up to random groups of people and start talking?
Yeah.
No, everybody's closed
The only
off.
time I had an experience like that outside of college was jury duty. And
Oh,
even then, once it was over after 2 weeks, it was like
yeah,
everybody just scattered. It's like,
scattered.
wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it
You
was
come
sad, but it
together
was,
for a common cause. Yeah.
yeah, it was cool while it lasted. But I still remember it like, wow, like, bye, Mick. I guess I'll never see you again, but that's it. That's it, you know? It's interesting.
Yeah. So our last day, we had a retirement ceremony today. And we were in line for hamburgers and we started talking about the price of weddings. And this guy was like, ours was $9 a plate. And I was like, $9? When did you get married? He said 2006. So we just had this great conversation about the business and consumerism. When you put wedding attached to it and you don't say celebration, the price hikes up and inflation is crazy. And we just had this great conversation, not more than 4 minutes. And then there was no goodbye. It was just like we went to our seats. We just like
Yeah,
walked alongside each other and we went to our seats. And I was like, I guess I'm never going to see him again. And it
yeah,
wasn't, I mean, it's a little bit sadness because I didn't talk to that person before and he was super easy to talk to, but I met all these other people. So I think it's just interesting to see who comes into your life and what that person can teach you. And so that taught me, I don't know, that just reminded me that I should be talking to people all the time because that was a weird but cool conversation in my day.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, adult awkwardness is very interesting, especially like parting ways with people. Especially parting ways with people. It's like, oh, bye, I
yep,
guess, or if even.
if
It just
even.
kind of poof in a way.
Yeah. Yes. I haven't been thinking about that often because I usually say, see you later,
Yeah,
which wouldn't be true today because I'm not going back to that school. But I usually say, see you later, have fun, or something like, something offhand. But it was just, no, we just stopped talking. We just put a period on the conversation and we left. So I think, I mean, it's not like we need etiquette classes. It's just, um, I feel like I think the days of letter writing were so much more personal. We don't we don't teach cursive anymore. It's really nice to just look at, your grandma's letter or your grandpa's letter or soldiers' letters to their loved ones and just think how different communication used to be. And I think that puts a higher value on the importance of communication, which goes back to writing, right? I think it goes back to the written word. We could never advance our society if we don't have things written down. And I think that's a lost art, letter writing. Our kids don't even know where a stamp goes on an envelope. We were just talking about this conversation. They're in high school and they've never had to address an envelope. Um, and there's a lot of positivity in writing something and really thinking about what do you want to say to that person so it's intentional. My mom still writes me letters. She started in college and she still does. And
hmm.
I'll see like when she crosses stuff out, oh, that wasn't what I wanted to say, but it's
Yeah.
just in the thought process. And then you get this personalized note, and our kids today usually don't have that experience.
That's a really good
They don't,
point.
yeah, they don't even think they do email. They just
Yeah,
text.
when I reflect, there's been a few times where I've handwritten letters to my siblings, and then, when I'd see them next, that encounter was just totally different. They had a literal there was an energetic glow about them. You could feel it. That meant something to them. It's like, wow, the impact of just doing that, it really does change things. So it's a good point you bring up there.
So actually, I didn't even think about this when I was talking to you, but in my novel, the three kids, the main character and her siblings are separated on separate vacations on purpose by their mom. And they don't like each other. And that's part of the reason they're not together. But they're forced. One of mom's rules is that they have to write letters to each other.
Hmm.
And so I have like it somewhere in each chapter almost, there's a letter. And through the letters, they grow closer. And I think that's really a really good way to show character development too. Mom forced me to write a letter. So first it's going to be really short, but then I start realizing I have things to say to my siblings that I wouldn't say to them. Like you're saying, when you write letters to yourself, I would never say this face to face,
Yeah.
but it's different on paper.
Paper has its own tongue. Yeah.
Paper. Oh, that's great. That is great. Because you're a different person in front of a screen when you're on social media than you are normally. And
Yeah.
be a different person, just like you can be a different person, like more in touch with your emotions or however you want to present yourself in a handwritten letter.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're familiar with this one quote by Oscar Wilde. It goes something like, "Give a man a mask and he'll tell the truth." I think in a way, paper is that kind of mask as well, you know? The one thing that was most liberating to me about writing was when I realized it's just me and this paper, and I can just put whatever on there. Nobody else has to see this.
Mhm.
Makes a huge, huge difference.
Mhm. I think
That's why I was protective of my writing, I think.
I was gonna ask you
Yeah,
what was the origins of that? Okay. Okay. I love
yeah.
that.
I
You
think
thought
that's
that
what it
it
was.
was too was it too revealing? Are you talking about?
I think maybe, but I think it also had something to do with what you said earlier, which was like maybe this fear of like maybe people will just take the stuff that I write for themselves. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be kind of cautious of that.
Mhm.
But I think over the years I've gotten better at that though, just kind of sharing and being okay with it. Because you also realize, I think, when you truly, we're writers, both of us. When you're truly a writer, I think you lose the fear of scarcity over time. You think like there's moments when you're maybe beginning and you're very precious
Mhm.
about what you put together. But over time, when that quantity builds, you're
Mhm.
less concerned. It's kind of like yeah, okay, I did that. It's less
Mhm.
precious. It doesn't make it any less beautiful, but it's kind of like less precious to you. Something really liberating. I don't know if you've experienced something like that yourself.
I remember when I wrote my first book manuscript, I was all about, okay, I got to get the copyright on this. I got to do all of these steps so no one can steal it. And I just realized that that's not really the most important thing. So
Mhm.
you take risks and you take fewer risks at the beginning. You're absolutely right. That mirrors my own experience so much. But by the time I joined all these different critique groups, I was like, I'm just going to put it out there. If they want to steal my work, my ideas, and they can do it better, props to them. That's good. Maybe
Yeah.
I should have gotten mine out faster. Like, of course, I've never had that experience. Nobody's
Yeah.
stolen anything from me, but
There's
yeah,
only the Jenna Baker experience. Even if they steal a line or something, it's like it's never gonna be the way you put it
that I
together.
would put it, that I would put it. And if you think about this, nobody writes original material. We all borrow things from somewhere or another. Harry Potter had stuff that was borrowed from other things, and it still was great. So you can write any kind of story that's already been written before, as long as you do it your way.
It's interesting you say that because as a kid, I really loved Harry Potter and also the Mummy franchise.
Mhm.
And I hadn't seen those movies for years. And then I published my first book. And in the book, there's, this idea of um, resurrection, multiple lives, a piece of a soul in somebody else. And then a few like after I published the book, I watched the Mummy movies again. I watched Harry Potter films again, and I was like, wait a second, like that stuff,
Mhm.
those ideas are kind
Mhm.
of in there already in their own way.
Mhm.
And it's not like I was pulling from that consciously, but it just goes to show, as you said, it's all out there. All
Mhm.
these ideas are out there. We're all standing on the backs of giants, as Newton would say.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just it's a continuous inspiring thing.
Mhm. And I think at some point we have to not look at it as they're stealing my idea, but they went a new direction with it. We can have similar thoughts as humans, and that's okay. Um, but you're right. I think subconsciously we get these things ingrained in our head, and they come out in weird ways. I know I'm always inspired. I'm usually inspired by dreams when I write. What is your main inspiration?
It's funny you say that. That first book that I published, it literally is the product of me waking up from a dream because I
Hmm.
saw that first scene unfold in a dream and
Hmm.
then I just wrote it. So yeah, I guess that's one
Hmm.
avenue for sure. Yeah.
Hmm. I love that because our mind is a natural mixer, our subconscious. And so when we're sleeping, we can't control, if this monster takes this course of action. We can't control what we dream and how it plays out. So I think all the things that we experience in a day kind of just mix and meld in there. And I think that gives us great stories.
Yeah. Jenna, it's been a wonderful conversation so far. I'm curious, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you felt like you wanted to say but didn't get a chance to, or something on your mind you wanted to express?
Um, I think that anyone can be a writer. Um, I think you don't have to have a book published to be an author. I know that that is probably a little bit debatable, but if in your heart you're a writer and you also want to be an author, just keep pursuing the things that you're doing. And I think the most successful writers are open to critique and use that critique to make themselves better. But I think feedback is the most valuable thing that we can probably have as writers. I would never just write a full manuscript and put it out in the world. I think that's probably a lack of foresight on the part of an author. Just because they're anxious doesn't mean the world's ready to receive it. Um,
Oh,
I think that you can do whatever you want to, but if you're not meeting those people and having conversations just like this, and quoting things back and forth and diving deeper into philosophy, you're not going to get there, and it'll probably show in your writing.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That is a good point.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really had a fun conversation.
I did as well. Yeah. I wanted to ask you more about, like your high school experience as a teacher. Uh, my best teachers were English teachers, so appreciate what you're doing out there. It makes a difference, I'm sure. Um, yeah. Do you have any other closing thoughts or now that we're done with the podcast?
I love that your favorite teachers were English. I
Yeah.
like when my students say to me at the end of the year that they hate English, but they loved my class. And I get that quite frequently. Or you made me like English again, which is
Mhm.
good. Um, I don't know. I hope that we can continue, to go to group and improve our writing and take risks because I think it's all about taking risks and putting yourself out there. I think my biggest fear is that like something will happen to me before I have a published work, a major, and what I consider would be a novel, before I have published a novel. So I'm just going to keep at it. Even if it takes more
Yeah.
years, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to find time to do that. And I just have to make it a habit. I know that many people say you have to write once a day. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it's a good practice, even if it's just journaling. So I think maybe this summer I have to make a goal for myself to do some sort of writing exercise, maybe once a day or at least 4 times a week. We'll see if that happens.
Are you a Lana Del Rey fan?
Yes, I do like her stuff. I can't tell you all the songs she has sung recently, but yes, I love her
I just
voice.
realized as you were speaking, you kind of look like
Oh, well, we have the same hair.
her. Yeah, no, she's
Thank
got good songs. She's actually the first songwriter where I realized, wait, this is a poet speaking.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it's interesting
Yeah,
all the ways writing can transform.
I
Yeah,
agree with you.
yeah. But yeah, thank
Gosh,
you again, Jenna, for being here. I
yes,
had fun,
me
and I
too.
learned a lot from you, so I really appreciate that.
Well, listen, I don't have as many quotes in my head as you. That was impressive. It
Oh, thank
makes me
you.
want to go look at what writers are saying and be able to quote
But
them
I
and
like
talk.
what you said at the end because I want to do it less. I want to quote less, and I kind of just want to focus on, just me in the moment.
Mhm.
Less of that philosophy as you were referring to.
Believe in your
Yeah.
own writing.
Believe in your own writing. There you
Mhm.
go.
Mhm.
But yeah, I
Okay.
suppose until next time, eh?
Well, thank you so
Take
much.
care.
I hope to see you in group soon.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I hope to see you soon as well. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.